Hello and welcome to another episode of the Handyman Success Podcast. My name is Jason Call, one of the co-hosts, founder of Handyman Marketing Pros. With me, my partner in crime, Alan Lee, founder of the Handyman Journey Business Coaching and, of course, Honestly Handyman Services based out of Sacramento. If you've been with us before, then you know our mission here is to teach and inspire handyman and home improvement contractors, teach them actual business principles and strategies and inspire that you can get over the hurdles. You can start a business. You can do whatever you set out to do. And you will be taught and inspired by our guests, Chris. No expectations there. I'm just kidding. So anyway, super excited today. We're here with Chris out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. Chris, if you don't mind kind of giving us a background on your business, lay of the land, and kind of, just set the tone of where you're at right now.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. So my name's Chris Lalomia. My company's called The Trusted Toolbox. I am a corporate refugee. I left the corporate zoo, started my own handyman business back in 2008. If you all remember when that was the beginning of the recession. So timing really sucks on my part, but I was able to power through that. Today, after 15 years, I have a handyman and remodeling division here in Atlanta, and just recently opened a new branch in Athens, which is about an hour and a half away from where we are today. I've got 32 total employees. I've got 15 handymen who go out there and run in our trucks and do work there. But the way I started was I've told this story. I actually have this in my book. I sold my Mercedes, bought 2 white vans, put myself in one, hired another guy, put him in that one. And I did everything that we all do when we first start. I answered the phones. I did the estimates. I did the work. I was the helper. I was the chief marketing officer. I was the number 1 CSR. I was doing everything, but I was building my process to get to where we are today to do that. So pretty handy. But right now I let most of my guys do all that work because usually when I get involved, either I either pinch my finger or cut my hand, which is what happened last week when I tried to help one guy. That was it.
Awesome. Let's see. Before we I definitely want you to talk more about like your background, like history, leaving the corporate world, the zoo, selling the Mercedes and buying 2 vans. But if you don't mind kind of sharing, like what are your like revenue goals this year? What'd you do last year, just to put into perspective?
Yeah. So the year before, coming out of COVID, so 2020, then 21, it was good for us here in Georgia. And, obviously geographically based, we all had different experiences on what was going on. But in Georgia, we opened up relatively quickly and got ourselves back on our feet. So in 21, we had a pretty good year, ended up about $4.5 million. This year, we're going to end up right around $5.5 million. Now that's handyman and remodeling. So just the handyman numbers this year, we'll probably do 3.1 in overall revenue. That's running between 11 and 15 techs all year. I was pretty short staffed the first 6 months of this year because of the shortage. Everybody's busy. If you got a solo job going, you got a solo handyman business, you don't need to come work with me. The guys who like working for us are guys who were on their own and got sick of trying to find the jobs, do the jobs, find people to help them do the jobs, collect on the jobs, be responsible and do all the invoicing and accounting that. As handyman, if you're running your own deal, that's what you do after 4 and 5 o'clock every day to keep up on it. So our goals next year are pretty lofty. We're really looking to grow the remodeling business as well. I think the handyman, we're probably at the right size between 16 and 18. If we can keep that going next year. I've also got 5 guys who go out there and do the sales. So Our guys aren't really having to go out there and do much of the sales. I actually have on-site estimators. These guys have learned how to upsell while they're there. We call them add-ons because, again, if you know the characters of the people, if you are your own handyman, you're probably pretty good at talking with people. But you know that when you bring some guys in, they're probably not as good at talking with people. They just want to show off that they're an artist and they're a craftsman. They know how to do what they're doing, but they don't really want to talk to them. So that's how our guys feel.
Sweet. Quick question on that. You mentioned like 6 to 18 or 16 to 18 seems like a good size for the handyman side. Like what makes you like kind of, I guess, dial in what is the good size for the handyman division?
It's been tough to dial that one in. I have a full-time scheduler. So we do what we call skill-based routing. And as I'm talking to other guys who are maybe similar size as us in the nation, we do is we try to identify the skill set. So what we do it in all the trades that we work in. Now here in Georgia, we do a lot of wood rot repair. That's trim repair on outside of houses, fascia, soffit, brick mold, working on decks, working on doors and windows, exterior. A lot of our wood gets rotted out pretty quickly because we're in the Southeast. We have a lot of southern pine, but we also have that heat and humidity that really eats it up. So we do a lot of that. But what we do is we try to find the skill sets of the guys. We rank them in 8 areas, and we have them rank themselves 1 to 10 in the beginning, and then we re-rank them as they do jobs. Okay. So my scheduler is the constraining factor, isn't that? She is awesome, by the way. She was a basement remodeler with her husband for years, so you can't bullshit her. So she knows what she's talking about, but she gets the right guy to the right job on the right day, and that's the constraint. She does a great job, but it's a Herculean task, no doubt, because I had to do it as well.
Okay, good to know.
So she matches the job that needs to be done with the correct skill set.
Correct.
Via the handyman. Okay.
Yeah, she's awesome. Like the mama of the handyman that sends them out along their way based on who's best for what.
Exactly right. And she's the mama like I grew up with, and that's the one who has the wooden spoon that's not afraid to whap it across your ass when you're doing something wrong. But the skill set's a big driver. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So basically, if you had another one of her, you could have a bigger handyman business, basically.
Right. And what I'm going to do, the approach I'm going right now is to actually come up with more satellite offices. Atlanta is such a sprawling metro market with horrible traffic, you guys. You're in California, you might know LA's traffic is bad. And if you know DC, you know DC's traffic is bad. But Atlanta has its own special breed of really crappy roads and a whole lot of people, and they're all still moving here. So it's good for our business, but it's hard for logistics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So can you walk us through kind of starting up the business and what that looked like? And did you originally have a vision for getting it to this point, or did you just have a vision of just you?
I did. I actually had a vision. I built a business plan. I'm a big proponent of that. Again, I keep referencing my book called From the Zoo to the Wild. Shameless plug.
No, we're going to plug your podcast and your book, Chris. Like truly, like it's good stuff.
So my business plan, I set about doing it, and I actually found the template from Score, which is a free template. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't looking to make an A paper out of this thing. I wasn't looking to create a 30-page document that nobody would ever look at ever again. I actually used it to go out there and find other people to help me answer the questions I needed. So I had a functional org chart when I first started the business. Now I filled every single box in that org chart, but today that org chart has been modified, but really I've started to fill. I started to figure out what I was doing in the beginning. The very first thing I did in the beginning was I kept it simple. I mean, the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. I had QuickBooks Desktop. I bought a pretty simple client server-based CRM system called Service CEO, which is actually out there now in web form. But I used the CRM system to kind of be the glue for me, so I could keep track of people as I was running around. But I had a call sheet in my truck. When somebody would call, I'd say, "Thank you for calling the Trusted Toolbox. This is Chris. How can I help you?" I was wondering if you could come out there and take a look at something at my house. I said, "Well, I just happen to be in your area tomorrow," which I didn't know if I was or not. I just had to get out there and get going, man. I was doing everything.
You did now.
Yeah. So we got out there and about, say I started in April. The recession really started to take hold in August and September, but I was able to bring on a lady to start answering the phones for me in October because I had gotten up to 4 guys running around doing the things. And so we stayed at 4 or 5 for about a year. But that really helped me kind of build those processes because, it's hard if you're a one-man shop and you're trying to even go to 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. Those guys aren't going to be you. And if you're really good at talking to customers and convincing them that this is the right way to go and you know how to do this and do that, those guys didn't know how to do that stuff. And so I found even with 4 guys, they just weren't acting like I was. And I was having a lot of callbacks and redos. And what I found was it wasn't always them. It was me. It was the way I was estimating. It was, me missing some things and not getting the customer to say, this is it, not getting my guys to get a signature to start and a signature to end. But I was all paper-based, and I had a gas card, and that gas card sat with me. You want to get gas? You had to come get me. You had to show up at the office, or I'd have to find you somewhere, and we'd have to fill up the truck. So I kept it simple. Now, today, those processes wouldn't have scaled to where I was, but I laid the simple foundation, and then we were able to grow. And today, I've got gas cards, and they have Amex cards with purchase controls on them.
Sweet. Before I know we're just going to dive in here, but before we get too in the weeds, if you don't mind, Chris, sharing like your story of like, you left a successful corporate career. If I recall from our conversation, you had the second home, nice cars, all that good stuff, and then left it all to start this business. So if you don't mind sharing with our viewers just kind of like your personal story and like leaving all that and just kind of what went into that jump. It's just a huge jump, especially at the stakes that you were running at.
It was a big jump, and it was a leap. I don't say this to pat myself on the back. I was a very successful business guy. I was successful in 3 different companies: engineer, consulting, and then finally in banking, doing what I was doing. And I was going up that ladder. But when you get up that certain level, the money is great and it's intoxicating. And it's like the lotus flower, right? If you've ever been to the casinos in Vegas, you're just in there and you're running around. You don't know what time it is anymore. But they keep feeding you drinks. You keep putting money in the slot machines or playing cards. And I was doing it. Things were great, but I just wasn't happy. Wasn't happy with what I was doing. My wife had a great job at the time as well. So that helped. But that wasn't the reason I did it. I actually took a year and a half before we even did the leap. So I made the decision to leave in 2006, and I used April 2008 as the leaping off point. Spring, getting the business figured out, it would be a good time to do it. But it was tough. So we ratcheted down our spend. Really had to put the reins on the kids and the wife and say, all right, if we're going to do this, I got to start saving the money. And I used a lot of my bonus money and options to start the business. Because one thing that's really hard is I know a lot of guys out there will tell you the stories. I just did it off a credit card, or, I got my first job, then I got my second job and my third job, and I was making money by the end of 30 days. Well, that's not the way I built mine. I actually invested heavily in advertising in the beginning. I bought 2 trucks, like I mentioned, paid cash for those, got them wrapped, paid cash for that. So I put away about $150,000 to start my business, and I did not go the franchise route. I actually investigated going franchise. Actually went all the way to Discovery Day at one of the biggest franchise companies still going, and decided not to go with them and pay the franchise fee. I was just going to take that money that they tell you got to have and say, all right, I'm going to go do this with $150,000. And I burned through it. There you go. I'm an idiot. I said I was going to break even, go early, go quick, and the recession got a hold of us. Advertising was really changing back in 2008. When you think about it, I was told, you got to be in the phone book, man. You got to have a big page. You got to pay them $5,000 a month. And I was like, I didn't do it. So one of the smart things I did is I just got myself in the phone book. And of course, today, who would even think about that? Other than the 5 phone books I have. No, I'm kidding. At the house. So I burned through some advertising, learned some lessons, underpriced a lot of stuff. Was overpaying labor in the beginning for revenue coming out, and really was learning my lesson. And then I thought I could break even in 16 months, and it took me about 26 months. It was a little over 2 years where I started breaking even, started making money, and it started to work. The branding, I got all my guys in our shirts, and they wear khaki pants or khaki shorts. We put a professional spin on what we do. We got trucks running around, gas. I started figuring out my pricing model was way off. And again, we didn't have all the stuff we had today, like your guys' podcast and those Facebook groups and these things to share. If I would have had all that in the beginning, I probably would have doubted some of the numbers I've seen in some of these Facebook groups, but I would have known that I was way off on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. So real quick, was there ever a time in these last 15 years when you just felt like giving up completely?
3 times.
3 times. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yep. I was told that you don't know you're in business for yourself until you have to make payroll by going to get that one check, get it in the bank, and make payroll where everybody gets paid except you. And I did that. I had to scramble on a Thursday night, got the check in there at 4:28 with the bank closing at 4:30, made payroll, have not missed payroll in 15 years. Very proud of that. But there were a number of times, and like I said, 3 specific times where I said, maybe the juice isn't worth the squeeze. This is just getting too hard. I thought this would be it's not that I was always in it for the money, or I am in it for the money necessarily, because that'll absolutely defeat everybody if you're doing it like that. That you make bad decisions when you're thinking about how much money you're going to make today at 8:30 in the morning. You got to be thinking about taking care of business. But what was happening to me was I just couldn't get over that hurdle. I wasn't putting away enough. I wasn't being able to take much out of the business, and I couldn't also put my reserves away that I wanted to for those rainy days because I had just come out of the recession. And that's where I just said, maybe this isn't worth it, man. I'm just going to be out. And so that happened once. I sat there on the couch, bawling like a baby, man. I'm not going to lie. What have I done to my wife, my family? What did I do? I said I was willing to do this and risk everything, but when you're really doing it and thinking about just giving it up and going back to corporate America and saying, well, at least I can make, big 6-figure incomes and go back. But I realized I learned something about myself. I think as entrepreneurs, you have to be optimistic. You got to be a problem solver. You got to be tenacious. And I have all three of those. And so I just kept plugging. Then it happened again, where I was working for an ex-friend of mine, frankly. And the guy looked at me and said, I said, well, here we are. We just finished your bathroom. Just, you know what? You did owe me $7,000, but if you just split the difference with me, $3,500, that covers my costs. He goes, no, I don't think any of that's worth it. And
wow.
I was like, wow, if I can't even get this guy to buy in to what was honestly was a good looking bathroom. He just didn't like the timeline. And yeah, I just didn't choose my customer correctly there. I chose as a friend and a heart, as opposed to not. And right there I went, huh. And even he said, have you ever thought about just maybe closing up? That was the last line he ever used to me, by the way, because I've never talked to him since. So that was number 2. 3 was right before COVID. Again, looking at it, I've been at it for 13, 14 years. I was 12 years before it started. Was it really worth it? I actually got the business valued, and it was valued pretty well. I thought maybe I'd get out and maybe get into consulting or do something else and maybe start helping other people doing this business. That one was really more of a soft one. That was not near as hard as the first 2. So I wasn't committed to that yet. But COVID hit. Things have been going really well. I've got some good people in place to help me run the business, to allow me to do stuff like this, chat with you guys on the podcast, run a podcast, took time to write a book. So now I think I'm in a lot better place. But guys, it's hard. I don't care if you're a solo guy, if you got 3 guys, or in my case, 32, it's all just different levels of hard.
One thing I'd love to just hear you talk about is, what you mentioned, a distinct difference between, going from yourself to like 3, 4, or 5 guys. The processes would not have held for 32. So if you don't mind talking about, the different strategies, the different way of doing things from 1 to 5 to 5 to 32, or what did that scaling process look like for you?
Right. That's a great question, because as you go through this, you have inflection points. 1 to 5 worked well. I would see the guys. We were again paper-based, right? So I'd have to print out the work orders. They'd have to get them in their hands, go to do the jobs, signature to start on the piece of paper, signature to end, bring the check back, staple to the piece of paper. That's today. Fast forward 15 years, my guys all have iPads. We can take credit cards. We can bring checks. We're actually going to start taking them in the field. Hopefully in the next 2 months, where we can actually truncate the check or the credit card at time of purchase. So they were all different points, though. Like, I'll give you a good example is when I got to 2 sales guys, and I was really a sales guy at that point. I had an operations manager before the scheduler, and I had 2 ladies in the office answering the phone. So those 3 would be in the office, and I would be out there selling along with the other 2 guys. And I would be running 6 to 8 appointments a day. I'd be running like a fiend. I'd walk in there and I'd blah, 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 da, 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 do, and I'd run out the door. And then a week later, nothing was done. I'm like, what the hell's going on? I told you guys what to do. And the guy came up to me and said, Chris, you came in and you were talking complete nonsense and gibberish going 100 miles an hour. We had no idea what you were doing. We just figured it was a Chris moment. And they call it Chris crack. When I'm on my Chris crack and I just came in, I realized at that point, man, dude, it's time to start slowing down. Because if you want the team to go with you, they got to hear where you're going to go, where you want to go. And then you got to take the time and be more thoughtful and more pragmatic about what you're telling them. So I started to put it all down in emails, started to write it down a little bit more, gave myself some time to pause and start to think about just one thing at a time for a while. Of course, that went out the window pretty quickly with entrepreneurial ADD, and I still think about 25 things at once, but that was one. So I learned that I had to start writing these things down. Next one was scheduler. My operations manager said, Uncle, I'm done, man. I got 8 guys running. I got to order materials. I got to help these guys. We got to do training with these guys. I can't schedule. Went in there to schedule them. And I realized, man, scheduling is hard work. So I quickly hired Deborah, who's my scheduler. And so we scaled up and kept going again. And then, just every point has been a new learning for me as you're going and continually evolving. And to get to the size I am today, I've got to get my core nucleus down. I've got a good core group of folks in the office, salespeople, project managers, office folks. And then what I do is I do a strategic meeting with them every year. And then I do quarterly and sometimes monthly updates, depending on the pace of what things are changing. And so, good example this year, right? You think, if you're listening to this, you're like, hey man, this guy's got it. I don't ever want to be like this guy, but he's listening to some things. It sounds like he's got some good money coming in. Well, let me tell you what happened. You're right. You don't want to be as big as me. I've turned over my sales staff 100% this year. And I had to sit there and all summer go out there and retrain these guys on all the stuff that most of your listeners already know. And that is, how to do this, how to do that. Because we do a lot of different stuff. That's what makes the handyman business so cool. Our repeat business right now is 40%. Which is great for a company our size, but it's because we do so many different things. You paint somebody's house, you can do the outside and the inside. Then you're done for about 5 to 7 years. So you can't paint anymore. You're hoping for referrals. So what I did there is I had to go out there and train all these sales guys. So I was in the truck out there doing estimates, training 3 new guys. And now the 4th guy with the guy starting the Athens one from literally May through the 1st of August. And so that's hard. When you got what I've got going on the outside, it was hard to pull away and take myself out of everything else I was working on.
That's good. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I'm interested in you said that you have, is it 5 on-site estimators right now? Is that the correct number? So what does that look like, and how do they particularly go out and do estimates? I mean, so the handymen are in no way actually giving their own estimates? It's only the estimators doing this. Is that correct?
They do very little selling. That's the handyman. So my techs, we call them technicians, they go out and we talk about add-on sales. And before I even talked about this with the guys, I was literally at 0 on add-on sales when I started this process 7 years ago. And in 1 year, I went from 0 to 300,000 in sales. This year, we'll probably do a little over 600,000 of our 5.5 million will be coming from add-on work. So the estimator went out there. He said, okay, we can fix this door and replace that window. Guy gets out there and tech says, this door is not going to be able to be fixed. It needs to be replaced. And here's the price to replace it. And he gets an add-on that way. Or you're out there doing the work on the door and the window as it's specified. And they're like, hey man, I like what you're doing. Can you go look at this other stuff I forgot to talk about with your estimator on my deck? My railings are loose, or my stairs are loose, and maybe I got some deck boards that got to go get replaced, or drywall. My kids just took a hockey puck or a basketball to the garage, and can you fix that? And they're like, sure. So they've done that. What we really train our on-site techs, and this is an expensive business model to run because you got to pay these guys. They're 100% commission.
Okay.
All right. We compensate them on their gas and their trucks that they drive out on. But they go out there and they got to be at 100% sales mode. We're not high pressure sales, which makes it again a little bit harder. But these guys get a cut, so they get a commission, they get a price list. But it's a lot of art and science. How long is this going to take somebody? Like we just got a playhouse. Guy wants to put this up in the back of his house. He's like, hey, the guy's like, my new estimator's like, well, how much? I said, well, go out online and see how long the manufacturer says it's going to take. I said, and guess what? As handymen, we don't go twice as fast. So you take those hours and you build it up like that. So we try to bid at half and full day rates. But these guys, their average ticket for on-site sales is about $3,000. We also do sell out of the office, where our ladies in the office, our first touch customer service superstars, will book a day rate or a half day rate for a technician to go out there and do the job. And these guys know that this is their audition. This is their time to shine, get out there, do things our way, the way we do them, and get out there and start working. So with our in-house sales, they sell anywhere between 60 to 90 jobs a month out of the office, which is strong for us.
So if that's amazing. So if you do a half day and a full day rate, you said sometimes your customer relations personnel would book that, if I understand you correctly. So would they book out like 4 hours and just send the technician out there and he basically does as much as he could do in those 4 hours?
So what we've learned, I shouldn't say what I've learned. Here's one of the things I preach. I can't exceed the customer's expectation unless I know what their expectation is. So to exceed an expectation, you have to know theirs. We ask for a list and some pictures from our customers. And what I found is, especially today, people are pretty savvy. They'll send a list, they'll send you the pictures, and the ladies in the office, I bring them in for training every other week where we talk about, here's this job, here's what it looks like. If you get a picture, if you have a question, you ask our operations manager who does all the ordering and support of the guys out in the field to help you price it. And that's how we do it. Because it can really go the wrong way. If you're a solo guy and you get a call and you know Phoenix like the back of your hand, or you know the Dallas area like the back of your hand, well, I think you can probably price it without even seeing the house. But a lot of us can't do that. And especially here in Atlanta, we can go downtown Atlanta, houses built in the 20s and 40s. I know that if I'm doing the work, I grew up in one of those houses. It's going to take me a little bit longer than a house built in the 2000s that was stick frame. But so we try to get as many expectations set so we can exceed expectations.
That's good. That's good.
I know, let's see, hiring and training. That's a two big words there, but let's start with like, how do you hire?
That's a tough one right now. So I use ZipRecruiter. I actually have used a lady to help me hire this year because we were at 11 and that was really killing me with the size we are. Now, like I said, we're up to 16, trying to get to 18, and I'll probably put her on the back burner. Here's how we hire. And I came out of corporate America and I was what they call critically behavior interviewed trained. So I would ask all these really big questions and I got some really shitty answers. So we bring these guys in now and it's more the sales pitch on, here's our company. This is what's going on. This is what you can expect to make. This is what you can do. Tell me more about your skills. And then we go ahead and do the ranking right there. And then we say, the only way I know how to work with you is have you come work. So we have them come work with us, pay them for a trial basis. And what they do is they work with some of my more senior guys who've been with me for 6 and 7 years. Those guys rank and rate them, see how they're going to do. And then we all see if this is a good fit for him, a good fit for us. And then we go from there. We have I think, a very strong onboarding process. And what I mean by that is guys now will opt out pretty quickly when they realize this isn't for them. And we have them work with our guys for a week. And then they come in for what we call culture training with me. And that's me telling you about our business. We use a mission plaque to explain to everybody who we are, our 5 principles, the 3 things in our company we expect from you, and why we have a customer first professional attitude in what we do. Then they go out and then they get trained on how to use the iPad. And then we have consistent ongoing training every other Wednesday morning where we'll always train around customer service, operational processes. And then the last thing will be something technical, whether it be how to apply popcorn texture to drywall, or how to do a drywall patch quicker, or how to use shark bites, or how to use wire connections and not use wire nuts anymore, because you want to make sure those connections hold. As a guy who doesn't wire all the time, it's worth it to buy the extra pieces. And again, if you're good at it and you're listening to this, good. I'm glad you are. But all of us aren't that good at it. In electrical, I'm a 3 out of 10. And so that's one of I can shock myself pretty much every time I touch something. So that's what we're dealing with.
So every other Wednesday is the training, those 3 kind of points. How long are these trainings?
There's hour. We got to keep it short. Yeah, you got to keep it short. I actually have a thing out there on YouTube about it. It's keep an upbeat environment. We feed them in the morning. You know, we're in the Southeast, so chicken biscuits are king, and that's only from Chick-fil-A. We used to switch back and forth between donuts and chicken biscuits, and we heard real quickly that's just not going to work. So bring them in, keep it open, keep it light, sit them down. Now, again, if you're on your own and you've got 3 or 4 guys, I would tell you training is paramount because they're not going to work like you are. I don't care if he's your uncle. I don't care if he's your nephew. I don't care if he's your sister's best kid ever. And, you love him to death, but he's not going to do what you're doing. And if you're not proactively training, you're probably fighting more fires than you should be. And so we really hit on that. But what I found is these guys don't want to sit there. There's a reason they didn't go off to college or don't sit there behind a desk and jockey around on a computer and program stuff or work on spreadsheets, because that's boring, mundane crap. These guys want to go out there and be artists and work with their hands. So we got to keep them moving. And if we don't do something technical where they're actually either trying out a skill or picking up something, that the other two things just kind of fall flat.
Yeah. They got to have a chicken biscuit in their hand to be so remotely interested in customer
Got to
service.
have a chicken biscuit
Keep
or
it
two.
coming, man.
Yeah, I just keep the conveyor belt running. Yep.
That's huge.
So just to recap too, largely using like an online recruiting, ZipRecruiter, they are on in this trial period with a senior guy for about a week before they even learn about the company.
Correct. Yeah, we want to make sure that I used to do the training right off the bat, but we wanted to have the guys have some experience. What makes us a little bit different than a lot of folks is our customer will get a text message at 2 hours before their intended appointment time. So most of our times are 8:30 start. At 6:30, they're going to get a text message, and it's going to come from our technician through our system. It's going to say, "Hi, this is Chris. I will call or text 30 minutes ahead of my appointment time." And 30 minutes ahead of that appointment time at 8 o'clock, even if they're going to show up, if they're going to show up early, they call or text early. If they're going to show up late, they call at 8 o'clock. Because what we have found, and I find this even more and more, customer service is more important today than it ever has been in our business. People let us get away with some things. If I show up and maybe I smell because I'm sweating. Well, okay, this is hard work. Chris got to sweat. My shirt's a little dirty. Well, Chris is working with a shirt that's dirty. Well, I'll give him on that. Well, he's 2 hours late because he had to take his kid to school. Well, okay, I'll deal with that. So they'll deal with it. But after a while, they really start to wonder why I'm paying this professional money. And I would tell you that I've proven that if we act professional, then we get to earn a higher fee. We get to make more money and charge more than other companies because our customer service is more, we call it the Ritz-Carlton experience. We call it the trusted Toolbox way. People pay more to go to the Ritz-Carlton than they do to go to a Motel 6 or a Holiday Inn. Why? Because the experience, the service, they're willing to do that. So that's why I train these guys is that you put your shirt on, you wear khaki pants instead of jeans that are all ripped up, and you present yourself as a professional, you get rewarded as a professional. And that's where the training has really started to take hold. And that's where these guys get add-on sales. They get reviews at the end where I actually pay on reviews. They get a good review, I get an extra $25. They also get tips because we are in the tipping business. And if you work like a professional, come in, show up, you're bringing your tools, your skills, and your knowledge to bear that these guys don't have. These customers, frankly, I think a lot of times customers think what we're doing is voodoo. They don't even know what we're doing sometimes. Drywall. Yeah, I looked that up on YouTube. That's probably going to take you all weekend. Wow, my gosh, you're done in 3 hours? Well, I shouldn't pay you $1,000 for that. Well, you should, because I learned techniques and tips. I know how to do it.
Mm-hmm. That's huge. So how do you pay your technicians? Are your technicians, do they have any commission base or whatnot? Because your estimators are fully commissioned.
These guys are commission based. Yeah.
Okay. So 100%. Is that correct?
So our sales guys are 100% commission. Our handymen are either hourly if they're working as a helper or an apprentice on a job, or they get paid a percentage of the job. It's a pretty complicated pay process that we have. I use a CRM system called Vonago, which came out of the 1-800-GOT-JUNK days. They white labeled it years ago. So that's our web-based system. But I also use a reporting system called Encore with our iPads where they put in the percentage, they put in the gross labor amounts. And then 2 days every 2 weeks, I have a lady doing nothing but payroll processing to get these guys paid right. It's pretty complicated. I'm not going to lie. It's convoluted, but here's the thing. If you're good at what you do, these guys merit-based pay can make more. Instead of saying, hey man, I'm just going to make $25-$30 an hour. Some of these guys in these jobs, they're making sometimes $35-$40 an hour, but they're getting knocked out early. So what I found there is it incents them on quality, incents them on customer service. And as long as I can, one of our phrases is set you up for success, where I didn't send you out to do a 5.0 picture window by yourself for $80 and you're going to make $20 doing it. Then these guys have a chance because these guys need to make a lot more than that. Mm-hmm. So it is commission based with opportunities for bonuses in 3 areas.
That's great. So are these technicians, are they W-2 employees or 1099s?
All W-2 employees. So here in Georgia, I tried hard, but I couldn't pass the CPA test. A lot of guys I go up against, to be legit here in Georgia, you got to be a W-2 employee because there's a 20-point inspection process or whatever. I failed it because They wear my uniform. They drive in my trucks. I compensate them for the mileage, and I tell them where to be Monday through Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So
Makes
they're
them an
truly not a
employee.
subcontractor. Yep,
Yep.
that makes them an employee. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, that's huge. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that, out there in the world is the difference between 1099 and W-2. And it's important to see what those differences are and make sure that you are abiding by the law when that comes into place. Because 1099 is great because you don't have to pay workers' comp and all, Social Security and all that kind of stuff. But you can really get yourself in some trouble if you are treating people like an employee and don't actually have them as a W-2 employee. So, yeah.
I've had, I think in 14 years, I think I've only had 3 Department of Labor claims. And I've won every one of them, which, according to some of my other buddies in the home services world, that's pretty hard to do. But it's because I do have an expensive model. W-2, there's no doubt about it. It's an expensive model.
It is.
And you got to watch what you're doing. You got to make sure you're making your payroll taxes on the right time, the right amounts. But if you 1099 them and one of the guys wants to go, because it's not the Fed that's coming after you, it's the state governments that are coming after you to make sure that these employees are taken care of. Mm-hmm. And that's where you got to watch it. You can run the risk. It's up to you. You want to do it. You want to 1099 them. You want to pay them cash under the table. But if they want to stick it to you and go file a claim, and I've watched a buddy of mine go through the claim process. I've been audited once in my world. Knocking on wood. Don't want that one to never happen again because that was definitely a proctology exam. But I passed through, and it's tough. But you can run the risk and hope that these guys just stay where they are and don't ever file a workers' comp claim or don't ever try to sue or go after one of your customers because you didn't pay them the right way. All the horror stories are out there. There's a reason. It cost me a lot to run this business. There's no doubt about it. My net's nowhere near what a single guy would be doing. Nowhere near what it'd be when I had 4 people. But to run it legit and to know that I can pass those things, it's the insurance factor, right?
Yeah. Kind of on the note of compensation, you mentioned senior guys being at like 6 or 7 years. Outside of a model that rewards them for quality work, what else do you do to keep people, the good folks, on board for so long?
That's a great question. What I found is not everything has to be about money. So I offer paid time off, so they get paid holidays. Think about that for a minute.
Came from banking, man. Just take them all. Right.
And we did. And I took every holiday. I was like, oh my God, another holiday. Well, that's right. It's another month, another holiday for Chris. Yay. So I do pay for holidays, which these guys, a lot of them, if you're not working, you're not getting paid. So that's a pretty nice little benefit. And we talk about that. They get 1 week's paid time off after you've been with me for 2 years. And what's wild is a lot of guys won't take it. We have to force them to take it. They're just like, well, can I just get paid? And I'm like, no, you gotta take the time, man. We also do something I think it's part of my culture. I feel very strongly that our culture is a good one, can always be improved on. But one of the things we do is we have an office. So I have the guys not only come for training, but once a month or once every other month, we'll have a happy hour out back where we're grilling food and guys just show up after a job on Friday and sit down and have a hamburger, hot dog, a lot of barbecue because we're here in the South. That's what we do. So we'll feed them that way. This year, we're going to go out on a big houseboat on a big lake outside of Atlanta.
Nice.
Last year, we went to a Braves game where they got to bring their families. We had 90 people there. And so those are the kinds of things they like. But at Christmas time, we run a contest based on things that help us in our business, but help me as the owner. And they get tickets. And the highest ticket earner gets to pick first from under the tree. And they get to go around. It turns out to be like 3 times around. And the guys, we save up our Home Depot credits that we get because we're part of NARI. So we get a Home Depot refund. We get quarterly and we get gift cards and refunds. So we use that to buy the tools. Then I hook up with Milwaukee and Milwaukee gives us a good deal on some tools. Then we just go out and flat out buy some. Mm-hmm. And so these guys get to stock up on their tools. And it's wild. When you're an established handyman, what's the big thing they all go for? The pack out boxes. A way to organize their tools. You'd think they'd be going for the oscillating tools, the multi-tools, sawzalls. No, man, these guys are going after the pack outs. They're hilarious.
Yeah, pack outs have gone crazy the last few years for sure. Yep. Well, would you mind sharing with us some of your biggest wins that you've had over these last 15 years, both business and personally?
So probably the biggest win is that, well, I stayed married. That's a big one.
That's a good one right there.
Yeah, that starting your own business and doing what I did was tough, and it definitely was a strain. But personally, the kids, both my kids are now, one's in college still, and one's out of college. So I got them through to do that. Starting to enjoy more time off, starting to have some good vacations. If you follow me out there on any social media, especially Facebook, you'll see that I like to have some fun. And I like to get out there and play hard, work hard, and do that. Professionally, my biggest kind of where I'm really proud of this is that I can walk away for a week, and I did this summer and came back, and literally the first day I was waiting for like 10 issues and I had one, and not even that one was that big. So the team I have in place to do that, I really take a lot of pride in the fact that I do have 32 people, and I'm not just taking care of 32, but based on them performing within my culture, doing what they can do, I'm taking care of 32 families. Mm-hmm. And that's probably one of the things I really go, could I have picked a business that could have made more money? Probably. Would I have been successful at it? I don't know. And if you think I'm successful now, yeah, let me tell you about those first 4 years because they sucked. Here I am, overnight success, just 14, 15 years in the making.
Just a really long night, 15-year long night, and you made it.
Yeah.
So that's great. So what would you say are some of your biggest losses that you've experienced over these last 15 years, both business and personally speaking? I know that we've already talked about a few of them, or hiccups. I think a better way to put it is, what are some hiccups that you've gone through? Yeah,
hiccups. Obviously, pretty much all of them are tied to financials. And those financial issues that popped up were due to people. And so those have been some of my biggest losses is working with as many people as I do. I think Warren Buffett said it best, bigger isn't better, better is better. I got bigger and better after I went through my last inflection point to where we are today to really start to pick it up. And but some of the losses I had to incur were people related. Either guys going out there and doing the jobs wrong. I had a sales guy quit and then sued me.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm like, yeah. And lesson learned there. As soon as you get that demand letter, just pay it. Check your ego at the door and pay it. I found that out 6 months later from another attorney. I was working with one, and he said, I've never found a guy in the world who, and I've been doing this, they've said, for 30 years. Nobody's ever said, I'm so glad I fought that demand letter. And they always end up paying more. So that was a loss. It hurt. It was a financial hit, but it was a real mental drag for me to fight it. And I was fighting it for 6 months. My mental state was not where it needed to be, and it was starting to show. So that's probably the biggest loss. Personally, I don't know, man. I took the leap. I never planned on retiring early anyway. I'm 52. I've never touched any of my retirement from my corporate world days. So it's all sitting there for me when I get to 62. That's just, kind of iffy right now. If you're placing bets, I wouldn't bet against me not making 62. I don't know. We'll see. I'm trying hard to not make it there. I got to get myself back in shape.
Awesome. One question we didn't touch on, team of 32. I know you mentioned just starting Athens. I know that didn't go so well on the first day. Just share with the listeners, Chris shared with us before we started that today was the first day with your new Athens branch, and your technician was a no-show. Is that?
Yeah. As we've been here, I just got a text message from the manager giving me an update. I haven't read it yet, but it says missing in action tech has been found. So okay. I can't wait. But
it should be a good
one. As we grow this one, I've been training this guy for a couple months. We've actually gotten some revenue in Athens going through, but this was the first time all right, now it's time to really run the trusted toolbox model. We built up some jobs. You got some estimates, full week's worth of work. Let's go get it. And sure enough, he said out of the gates, the guy didn't show. I'm like, listen, man, not only is that going to happen again, it's going to happen often, but you know what? We can only get better. Let's go solve the problem. And he's over there solving the problem because I'm getting a couple of text messages from him already. So, you start things and you go, wow, why did I do that? I should be simplifying things.
I got detracted from my original thought there was if you could kind of give an overview of like your marketing machine that is, sitting under and fueling, a team of 32.
I'd love to talk about that. I'm very proud of the marketing and the efficiency I've been running at. Lately, the last 2-3 years, I've been under 4% overall advertising spend to revenue. But what I found is in the beginning, if I would, and I'm using this now in Athens, networking was big. If you're a professional handyman and you can take an hour and then just 2 more hours, that's 3 total hours out of your week to get people to know you. People buy from people they like, and you're a good handyman. Networking, that's big. Number 2, you got to have that website. We all know that. But not only should you have a good crawlable, searchable website that sends people to you, like, hey, fill out this form now to get a hold of me. Make it easy for people to work with you. That's what we do. So we have a chat. We have online. You can actually book online estimates with us on our website. So we're actually been able to make that easier to work with. I do some print advertising as well. That's my most expensive part of all of our spend right now. I'm doing all that advertising for literally 25% of our business. The other 75% comes from repeat customers, satisfied customers who have referred us, contractors that referred us. So the next thing I would tell you is you're out there and you're working and you're a handyman, go talk to some of those bigger remodelers. Go talk to the plumbing guy, go talk to the HVAC company that thinks they want to start a handyman business, but I watched them try to all start it. They're not as good as you guys are. You guys will get referred on that all the time. One big thing that really juiced me 2 years ago. So in COVID, I also lost my social media guy. I was paying him very little money because I wasn't really invested in it. Wasn't really thinking it was going to be a big deal because I placed a lot of small bets. Well, he had to go back to his family business because it was a medical practice and nobody would go into the medical office. So he had to go help his parents run his medical office. He goes, but try this other guy. So I bring this other guy in during COVID, never meet him. He lives an hour away from me. He starts working. And I said, all right, man, this is what I want. I want Instagram, the Trusted Toolbox. I want Facebook, the Trusted Toolbox. I want thousands and thousands of people to follow us and check us out because we're really cool. And after 6 months, I'm like, dude, we've added like 4 people. I mean, what the hell's the problem here? He's like, blah, 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 blah. He's telling me all this gibberish stuff. I wasn't even really paying attention because I was so mad that after I paid this guy for 6 months and our first meeting in person was this. He said, well, let me show you something else. And he didn't know I was mad. I was listening. And he goes, well, I want to show you your Google My Business page. I'm like, all right. He goes, before we got started on it, you were getting about 400 to 500 looks or views a month. Today, on my Google My Business page, we're getting 15,000 views a month. Our posts and our pictures are getting 300,000 to 400,000 looks a month. And my web page is only getting 12 to 1,500 a month, just like it's always been getting. And I was like, huh. So hear me and hear me now. Google My Business. You can't fight Google. You can't fight City Hall. Start posting your pictures out on Google My Business. Get people to review you out there consistently, not all at once. Get some reviews out there, and you're going to see your online presence goes up and starts competing with some of these national guys.
Yep. I talk about Google My Business, Google Business Profiles, Google Maps more than anything else because it's how people search and find local services, and the percentage share of people that are using Google Maps to find local businesses like handyman contractors, it goes up every single year.
Like I said, he's my number one. He's my rock star now. I love this guy. When he first came in, I'm like, man, what the hell? I mean, we still don't have any Instagram followers, but Instagram and Facebook, guys, that's influencing. That's relational marketing. That doesn't make the phone ring. Yeah. I've gotten
now
jobs
when people are on Facebook and Instagram, they're just scrolling. They're just doing this, and they don't even know what they're looking for. When people are on Google, they're looking for something.
Mm-hmm.
The
there
intent
you go.
That's just point. Totally different mindset.
Total different intent. Yep. I tried
100%.
I tried to bounce them out to Google to transact with them, and my bounce rate on that thing, I mean, it was like flubber, to use a 1950s reference, but man, this thing bounced so high, nobody was going to convert. So it's relational. If you go out there and check me out online, you can see the Trusted Toolbox. You'll see my own customer service.freak. It's all just fun, informational and relational. A lot of people tell me they see it, but when they're ready to transact with us, at least we're somewhere in the mix. But it's all Google My Business.
Yep. Chris, I know we got to wrap up here. Before our last question, as far as we'll have you give some parting advice and wisdom to anyone that's just getting started or thinking about starting. But before that, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about, you have a podcast, you have a book. This is your time, man.
All right. Well, I know I've talked about a number of them already because shameless plugs. You can tell I'm still a marketing and sales guy, but I got a podcast called the Small Business Safari, and I bring in I try to bring in as many people as I can locally because we like to drink beer and talk to people, but it's all focused on starting a business and scaling a business. And of course, it's bent towards the handyman or the home services stuff. So I think it's definitely one I would add to the repertoire. Listening, if you listen to podcasts, this is one. I listen to you guys. I flitter in and out with you guys as well. I find topics that are really interesting to me at my size, and I listen to them. So I love that. I've also got a book out there called From the Zoo to the Wild, Your Guide to Entrepreneurial Freedom and Wealth. It's a pretty easy read. I've had a lot of people tell me that. It's still selling copies on Amazon. How about that? I'm pretty excited about that too. But nice. Easy read. I think it'll really help any size business because it talks about the struggles I had scaling the business and doing that. And you can always find me out there on, like I said, social media. I'm customerservice.freak because I love so much about customer service and get into that. I'm actually doing TikToks, playing around with that, seeing what that medium's like, but still haven't found my way in that one. So we're still, again, transacting business on Google, having fun with the social media.
Sweet, man. And awesome. I can say I've listened to a few podcast episodes and cracked open the book, and I love the fun and the casual, real person nature to the content. So anyway, it was just a breath of fresh air. I think it's pretty entertaining and useful. So the Small Business Safari podcast, and then From the Zoo to the Wild.
From the Zoo to the Wild. So what's the tie to zoo safari stuff?
Yeah, so
for fun?
yeah, just for fun. I actually don't hunt. I don't go in safari. I don't do any of that. But in the book, I hit it right off the bat. I was walking through the zoo here in Atlanta with my kids, and I looked at this gorilla that we had at the time. The guy's name was called Willie B. He's famous here. And he was in this concrete cage getting fed bananas. And I'm like, look at you, man, king of the jungle. Yes, I've been corrected. I know that that's supposed to be the lion. But I'm looking at him like, look at you, big old powerful, just sitting in there, had the TV running, feeding bananas. I started walking away, pushing the stroller. I'm like, oh, shit, that's me. Because
wow.
I'm sitting in my office. They're feeding me all this stuff. Oh, Chris, you're doing great. Oh, don't forget to get these timelines. I had 400 people working for me. And I was like, oh, my God. What am I doing? I have got to get out of here and go run in the wild and see if I can do it. So I've been out rumbling, bumbling, and stumbling ever since. So that's what I
huge.
Think. Owning your own business is out there. You're out there in the wild world, man. It's fun.
That is huge. That's awesome, man. So yeah, what would you have for some advice for people just starting out or people wanting to start out in the handyman industry? What kind of advice would you have for them?
Obviously, you have a built-in skill set. If you're good at what you do, you'll play to your strengths and you'll do that. I tell you, I got some great advice, and that was, why don't you go out there and work for a remodeler or a handyman company first, and then get your chops, and then start your own business. And I'm like, nah, man, I'm too smart for that. I'm going to do this on my own. I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. You know, I think if you went and worked with a guy for a while or a bigger company just to see how it worked out, that would be good. If you're like me and yourself, screw this, man, I'm still too smart. Here's what I would tell you. All entrepreneurs that I have found are very good with sharing information as long as you're interesting and have a lot of fun with them too. They'll tell you stuff. In corporate America, that was not the way we rolled, man. If I had some information, I'd let you know if I wanted to let you know that I had some information, but usually I wouldn't. So go out there and ask people who are in the business, hey, how much are you charging? Use these Facebook groups that you guys got going on. I love those things because I look in there, I'm like, wow, yep, that's good. Even if you're 50% telling us the truth of what you're saying, I'm close enough. And I'm like, I'll figure it out. Because that information is key and powerful.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Well, that is fantastic. We got to wrap up here. But Chris, it has been an honor having you on the podcast here today. Thank you so much for sharing all your wealth of knowledge, and we got to have you on for another one because I think there's so much more in your business that we did not unpack.
There's a lot of info for a gorilla, man.
Very impressive. Let's go. Give me a banana. I like my bananas actually in my daiquiris, though. That's what smoothies are just missing one thing: alcohol.
That's great. And then if you guys are viewing or watching this podcast, we really appreciate you guys watching. We would be nothing without you guys. We need viewers. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope that you guys gained some knowledge or some information off of what we were talking about today. I want to let you guys know about a few different things that you could do to get plugged in and go to the next level. First thing I would recommend is we have a few Facebook groups out there. We have the Handyman Journey Mastermind group on Facebook, and then we also have the Handyman Success Podcast Mastermind group on Facebook. And that's where we have all of our guests from this podcast. Join that Facebook group. We'll get Chris over there so that if you have any follow-up questions, have anything that you were curious about, want to ask Chris about gorillas, that would be the place to do that. So check out those 2 Facebook groups. And then also you can reach both me and Jason over at handymanjourney.com. We have all kinds of things geared to help the handyman industry grow, everything from free ebooks to books that you can purchase to courses to coaching. We would love to connect with you further. So just thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really appreciate each and every one of you, and we will see you on the next podcast, which comes out on the 1st of every month. So we'll catch you guys later. Have a great day, guys. Bye.